July 29th, 2012, Sunday. Midas started his day the same way he had the last few days, by calling home. This time, the HU had visited his house and installed a secure video phone. It was Sunday evening at his house. He was able to see and talk to his family. He shared with them his training that he had done the day before on how to run the reception desk at the hotel. The HU rep who showed him the job gave him lessons on how to be polite, how to be courteous, and most of all, be thankful for near-missed legs that wouldn't get tired from standing all day. Midas' father shared with him the lessons he would have learned at Sunday school if he were back home. Father asked him if there was a church there. Midas didn't know. With all that happened the last week, he had forgot to ask. Father and mother both reminded him of the importance of church, and if that was not going to be observed, they would insist on him coming home. Alex was glad to see him. He said it was lonely not having someone to wrestle with. Alex sure seemed a lot stronger than Midas was at that age. There was no way he could wrestle with a regular kid his age, maybe not even a regular adult. 9 more weeks before vacation was something that came up often in conversation. After his call to his parents, he went down to breakfast. He planned on staying downstairs and just walking over to work when done. Thinking about it, he really did get a good job. He would work this Sunday and then everyone would pretty much be checked in and he could wander for a few days. At breakfast, some of the other kids were getting ready to go down and do more training for their tasks. Some were just going to be sitting all day. Midas finished his breakfast and walked over to the front desk. Once there, he gave the bot the code to step back and let him handle the front desk. This is the most boring job ever, he thought. He had been standing there for 2 hours and nothing happened. It was 10:00 and nothing was happening. A few minutes later, his hearing picked up a sparrow coming up the driveway. A girl came in with her HU rep. The girl had a natural red hair and brown eyes. Her name was Flair, and she was from Mexico. Midas was doing his best to draw in as many details as he could. First thing he noticed was how perfect-looking she was. Maybe she has super good looks, Midas thought. He wondered if there was even such a thing. The girl was 14, 5 foot 3 inches with a medium build. Midas made up his mind to try and get the age out of everyone he could. This way he could learn as much about everyone that came in as he could. Even if he was wrong on his guesses at feet and inches, he would try. Kron was the next boy to come in. He was from India. Kron was 15 years old, 5 feet 6 inches, and thin. Midas noted that he was very confident and polite. Orbit was the next to come in. Orbit was a girl from Russia, and said she was 15 years old when he asked. She was beautiful, 5 feet 10 inches, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Midas thought she looked like one of those movie stars from the 50s, only with muscles. Midas looked a little closer and noticed she had muscle development like adult near misses, but at 15. He guessed she must be strong. Greco was 14 and from Turkey. He was big, 6 feet tall and well-muscled. He said he was 14, but Midas thought he looked like an adult who needed to shave. He was not polite and did not have super good looks. The prettiest girl he had ever seen came in next. She said her name was Glimmer, and she was from Paris. Midas seemed to be looking away from her while he checked her in. He had to force himself to gather the detail he wanted to. 5 feet 5 inches tall with blonde hair and green eyes, he thought. He fumbled the question about how old she was, but she answered anyway. Glimmer said she was 13 years old. As she walked away, Midas snapped out of his shyness and noticed she didn't make any sound when she walked. The next girl was just as pretty. She was a German girl named Bioforce. She was 12 years old and 5 feet 1 inch tall. She was blonde like the French girl, but had blue eyes. Bioforce was very polite and courteous. Next was another bigger kid, about 5 feet 10 inches tall. Kinetic was his name, and he was from Iceland. He was another blonde with blue eyes. Midas wondered if his plain brown hair was not in style or something. Kinetic said he was 14 with a funny Swedish type of accent. Kinetic moved his arms and shoulders like he was always flexing his muscles. Midas thought it was kind of funny, like the kids back in school who wore their football jerseys all the time just in case anyone wondered if they played football or not. Kinetic was flexing to make sure everyone knew he had plenty of muscles. Ion was from Australia. He talked like he hunted crocodiles. He had brown hair and blue eyes like Midas. He was 13 years old and 5 feet 6 inches tall. Ion stayed at the desk for a while asking Midas what the teachers were like, what the food was like, how smart were the bots, and every question he could until his HU rep finally ushered him up to his room. Midas had a bot bring him a sandwich, some fries, and a soda between students checking in. He held the student check-in sheet and kept going over the details of each student so he would remember them later. Frost was from Sweden and spoke with an English accent. She had pure white hair and ice blue eyes. Midas asked her about the accent. "My homeschool tutor was from London," was her answer. Midas made note that Frost was 5 feet 8 inches tall and on the thin side. Frost was very polite but did not seem comfortable. The next person to check in was actually from England. Anvil had black hair and brown eyes. He was 5 feet 8 inches tall with a very athletic look. He told Midas he was 14 years old. Midas thought he seemed really likable and normal. Another super pretty girl stepped up to the desk and said, "My name is Virtuoso. I'm from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I'm 14 years old. I stand 5 feet 6 inches tall and have dark hair and green eyes." She was staring right at Midas with a smile while she spoke. "Mind reader?" Midas asked slowly. "Yes, may I have my key?" she asked, laughing. After she was gone, he made a mental note that she was a mind reader and to watch his thoughts around her like he did Zoner. "I wonder how many mind readers I will run into today," he questioned to himself. He watched some of the students who had already arrived. They were down in the dining room talking with his fellow redshirts. Aztec was muscular, at 5 feet 8 inches tall. He had black hair and brown eyes. Aztec said he was from Honduras and broken English. Midas asked him how long he had been studying English. His reply was, "From less than 2 years." Wow, he's going to have to work on that, Midas thought. Midas also remembered how fast Coach Hansen gave instructions and then said, "Go." If he didn't understand something, he would have been caught standing still and suffered for it. Midas hoped Aztec's English would improve, for his own sake. Surprisingly, the next person was from Argentina. She said her name was Quake. "Do all these girls have super good looks?" he thought to himself. Right after thinking that, he asked, "You're not a mind reader by chance?" She wasn't. Quake was tall, at 5 feet 9 inches tall. She was also 15 years old, with brown hair and brown eyes. She had exotic looks and acted like she was the shy one. A Canadian girl named Nano was the next to check in. She looked like Midas. She was 5 feet tall like him, and both looked about 95 pounds. Nano, like Midas, had short brown hair and blue eyes. Midas half expected her to say she was 11 years old. She was 13. Both of them had the same type of symmetrical features, and Nano wore no makeup. "You don't have any family in Michigan, do you?" Midas asked her. "No, all of my family is from Vancouver," Nano said. Midas watched her walk away and thought, that was weird. The next person to come in was a confident young man from the United Arab Emirates. He said his name was Saber. Midas placed him at 5 feet 8 inches tall with a runner's build. Saber had black hair and dark brown eyes. When Midas asked Saber how old he was, Saber answered, "Do I need to give you my age to get a room?" "No, I was just making conversation," answered Midas as he handed Saber his key. At the simplicity of Midas' answer, Saber said, "I'm 15 years old, and I will be turning 16 in September." He then smiled at Midas and went to his room. There was a lull in the mid-afternoon for about an hour. Nobody checked in. Midas counted up the checking sheet. 14 checked in out of 38, he thought. He kept telling himself one long day is better than several medium days. The next boy who walked in acted like he owned the place. "My name is Olympian, from the Greek Isle of Crete." Olympian was perfect in every way. Midas looked at his face, teeth, even his fingernails were perfect. Olympian was 5 feet 9 inches tall at only 13 years of age. He looked like he must work out constantly, or maybe that's just how he was made. Midas tried to make conversation and said to him, "I hear the Isle of Crete is very nice." "No words can describe the beauty that God blessed the place of my birth with. It is like heaven on earth," Olympian said with a slight Greek accent. Midas couldn't help but laugh when he said that. "What's so funny?" Olympian said with a serious face. "I thought you were trying to be funny," Midas said. "No, I was not," Olympian said with staring eyes. "Sorry," Midas said, feeling like he insulted someone. "You caught me off guard when you talked like that." "Just how was a superhero supposed to talk?" Olympian said a little louder. Midas felt bad now. He started to think of how to apologize for something he thought was supposed to be funny. "Look, I, didn't," he tried to say. "I got you," said Olympian with a big smile. "It was supposed to be funny. No hard feelings?" he said as he extended his hand to shake. Midas reached for his hand, shook it, and said, "You got me." Midas noticed that Olympian hardly flexed his forearm, and still his grip was crushing. Should have called himself Hercules, Midas thought. Then he came to the conclusion that Hercules was already taken several times over. I bet he's a meteor puncher, Midas thought.